welcome to Fun Problems, the problems of fun. I'm Peter C. Hayward.
I'm AJ Brandon.
And this is a very special episode where we teach you that drugs are bad. AJ, how do you feel about drugs?
They're bad.
Okay, well, okay, that's fine. That's fine. You know what? It's fine. We were going to start with them being good and then convince each other they were bad. But considering I didn't explain this to you at all and you had no idea, it's fine. And I'm not in a bad mood, which will not affect this epised at all. What are we doing in this episode, AJ?
Today, we're going to have
By the way, if you don't know me, that was entirely a bit.
Can you imagine this is the first episode? Like, wow, this guy's a dick.
Australian irony is very high. So
today we're going to go through my cell sheets. Now, this is a favor Peter is doing for me and for you guys. This is not Peter being mean to me. After that intro, I feel like we should maybe specify. Peter doesn't have to compliment sandwich these or anything like that. These are real cell sheets that I would really show to publishers, or that I have shown to publishers. And Peter is going to be reviewing these from the perspective of a publisher. If this came across his desk and presumably was the type of game that he would be interested in publishing to begin with, he's going to go through what things are the turn-offs of it, what things are working, all that sort of stuff. And if nothing's working, that's fine. That's what we're here for. So hopefully by the end of this, we'll have gone through 15 different cell sheets. Ooh. And we'll see if any of them are any good and what takeaways we can have. You and me, audience members, because I'm not going to say I'm the best at this.
Yes, this is an AJ requested episode. This is not. I wasn't like, hey AJ.
I think it's very valuable for our listeners, but you know what? It's also valuable for me. So I suckered him into it.
I normally have everything down here, so I'm looking down here. So it's bigger. I'm going to be looking up here, so I'm going to be looking in a weird direction, and I wanted to flag that up front. I'm aware that this is bad showmanship, but this is what we have. Although I just realized I have a webcam up there that I could have switched to, but too late now.
All good. So I'm not going to give Peter any extra information about the game other than what the cell sheet says. He's going to take a look at it and then give any notes he has on the presentation of it and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, I'm going to give raw thoughts and obvious big disclaimer, I'm not always right about anything. This is my opinion as someone who's looked at a lot of cell sheets and made a lot of cell sheets and sold a lot of games and signed a lot of games. Not word of God.
Mm-hmm. We also have a lot to go through, so we're not going to spend tons of time on each one, I don't think. Just any things that particularly stand out, and if we take a lesson from one, we can just skim over it again if we see the same issue pop up again and again.
I was going to do more description, but I think we'll definitely keep this as a YouTube only, and I won't even try to make this audio friendly. So
I think it'd be
congratulations, YouTubers! You're the only people who get this. Okay, this is a game called. I'm just going to describe it because I'm just thinking out loud. This is a game called Vend. It has a keypad drafting mechanism. You play cards to change the keypad, and then add the matching card to your tableau so you can score adjacent matching snacks. I understand what's happening thematically. I have almost no idea what it looks like. I'm going to get really nitty gritty because this is just like raw thoughts as we have them. See the little keypad, see the B and the 1 with keypad above it. Mm-hmm. I think you can use your mouse to gesture if you want to.
Oh, sure. Yep.
I thought that was a card. And then this little kind of secondary one with something coming off it isn't like it looks. Here's what it is. It looks like that B3 is a card that you are placing, not a zoomed in version, which I assume is the intent.
Yeah, the intent is is that this is like starting to cover the thing over here.
So off the top of my head, I would get rid of the box around keypad so that the only thing that could possibly be a card is the B and the 1. Because right now it looks like keypad itself is a card. And that would just make it clear. So you are going to play a thing, so you could change B1 to B3 or to A1 or whatever. And then you're going to get the thing from the vending machine, and then you're just going to score adjacent matching snacks in your tableau, I assume.
Yep.
And then I would assume that matching snacks were the snack matching, but apparently there's a whole second criteria being circled that I don't really understand.
So I'll explain if you
Yeah,
have
please.
any other thoughts. Yep, so each turn you play a card, and you can change one of these letters here, and then you take the corresponding thing. You got that exactly right. Then you have the thing added. And then based off of the criteria on the cards themselves, you may or may not have completed it. So this one, if I just zoom it out, this one requires being adjacent to jerky and
gotcha.
chips. It's
So-
not adjacent to the jerky or the chips.
And is it itself jerky and chips?
This one is jerky. This one's chips. So each card is itself a scoring mechanism and an ingredient for another thing to be scored,
Okay.
which is specified up here.
Recipe has a very specific meaning in terms of food.
True.
So the recipe of jerky is not chips. So
Right.
I don't think recipe's doing any favor. We're going to go to this one a little bit more because it's the first one and we're warming up. More nitty, and also I've given no previous notes. There's nothing I can be like last time. 72 snack cards, 8 times 9. You don't have any punctuation there, but I was like, man, those are huge cards. You mean 8 types of 9? Doesn't matter. Completely irrelevant information for a cell sheet. No reason to say there's 8 of 9 different types. No one cares. What is relevant, and I didn't get until I read the little thing, even seeing these diagrams, is that they're different shapes. So I would say 72 snack cards, brackets, different sizes, because that's sort of... Okay, let's zoom out. Sorry, I've gotten too far in the nitty-gritty. What is the point of a cell sheet, AJ? we got to hit... This is the worst thing about working with me, and AJ will attest that it's like this in design. I'm like, oh, you want to change a number for a card? What is a game? What does it mean to be human? This is how I work. I don't apologize for it.
So the point of the cell sheet is to get a publisher interested.
We should have done a cell
game.
sheet episode before this.
Yeah. Well, we did do a bit of a cell sheet episode. Remember, we got people. Well, no, it was more about like the hooks and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but we did
yeah.
touch
I mean,
on
like we could have done a dedicated. I don't know why I'm going to this now. We could have done a dedicated audio cell sheet episode and been like, and check out our YouTube for this.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a follow up. Who knows? But yeah,
Do you want to stop and do that? Because we can.
If we stop, we can do that. But then I would want to do that a different day because I am very hungry.
It is a few days later, and we recorded that cell sheet episode that we came up with mid-recording and wanted to jump straight back into where we were. So, AJ, now that we have now that we have described what a cell sheet is, let's break this down a little bit. What would you say, as the designer of this game, is, and I know we're not going to spend a lot of time on each of them, but I just want to really dive into this one. What would you say is the central hook of this game?
I think perhaps you should see if you can identify a hook, and if it's just completely not clear, then I can say it. But
I can see a few hooks. I can't see a hook, if that makes sense.
Sure. So in my mind, there are 2 central hooks, which are both mechanical.
Yep.
The first hook is the action selection. There's no action selection that works quite like this, where you're playing your cards out to change the keypad to take the right item. And 2, this is a less strong hook, slightly, I would say, but the way that you puzzle out your items, they have to be adjacent to items that match their description. So each item being both something that's used to score other items and having its own unique scoring, also with like spatial puzzling, where the cards are different sizes and you're trying to like organize everything. That's, again, I would say like a good, not great hook.
Gotcha. I'm really glad that I got you to answer before I answered, because I thought that was what you were going for, but I wasn't sure. So evaluating a cell sheet is evaluating a pitch, and evaluating a pitch is evaluating a product, and evaluating a product is evaluating a game. So this is why I needed that whole formation before I could share thoughts. Ridiculous though that is, I realize. I don't think that the selection is an interesting hook. The keypad thing, I just am like, it's just a way of choosing things. I don't think that's interesting. Now, maybe it's amazing to play, but I definitely don't get that from this cell sheet. I think it's serviceable, and I think like, oh yeah, that'd be fun, but I'm not like, wow, playing a keypad from a central thing. For me, that's just another way of drafting, which essentially it is. I think you'll agree. Not you won't agree with it's another way, but it is a drafting mechanism, and I'm like, cool, you've come up with a drafting mechanism. That doesn't set my world on fire.
Yes, Peter's not being dismissive here.
Yes, and as mentioned, like, this is all my opinion. I love AJ. This is to help.
Yes.
This is not to make him cry. I do other stuff to make him cry. I think placing stuff that connects to other stuff, again, like, I've seen that 1,000 times. Like, I can pull 5 games off my shelf that do that. What I think is uniquely interesting about this game is that you're putting stuff together of different sizes. And as, you know, if you came to me and said, hey, Peter, make a cell sheet, I would lean so hard into that. I think that is the interesting, unique hook of this, is it's a tableau game where the stuff's different size and you have to get it all to fit around itself. Right now, this cell sheet, as a cell sheet, we're finally at the layer that you actually asked, is trying to sell me on 3 different things not particularly well. Like, play cards to change a keypad, I don't care. That doesn't interest me. Like, I understand that is what you do, but I don't see that. I'm like, oh, I get to change a keypad. I'm like, okay, add the matching cards to your tableau. Oh, cool, you've done what every other game does. So you can score adjacent matching stacks. But my publisher eye sees at the different sizes, and sort of like we talked about in the cell sheet episode, when you see like 7 minutes or 0 players, I'm like, those are different sizes. And I don't think that's a mistake, and that's genuinely what grabs me.
Cool.
So, and then the other thing I'll say is that this is almost like a negative theme. Like, I'm not excited to play the vending machine card game. I'm unexcited to publish that. I'm not going to, like, and personal preference, blah, blah, blah. So I understand that it ties into your keypad thing, etc., but that is a red flag for me, and this is about feedback, so that's my thoughts on Vend. Does that all make sense?
Yep, all makes sense.
Cool. Let's finally, 7 weeks later, get onto a second cell sheet.
This is because they were going to try and move fairly quickly through these.
Yes.
And we're also not going to repeat things, so if there's something Peter has said about one cell sheet and it's the same issue, we just skim right past that.
Cool. I've played this game, so I'm a little bit disadvantaged in terms of looking at a raw cell sheet, but and I'm not going to describe it because it's going to be video only. Operation Overwatch. So the first thing I see is Tom Cruise, the spy, and I'm like, I want to play Tom Cruise. Like, thematically, like, yes, I'm in. I want to be the spy. The hacker, it's funny that you used, what's his name? Ving James, as opposed to Simon Pegg. Because when I think of these movies, for context, I just watched through all of the Mission Impossible movies in the last, 2 months, and I think Simon Pegg. So Ving James is not an incorrect choice, but I'm like, oh, that's a strange choice for me when Simon Pegg's right there.
So I actually haven't watched any of the movies.
Oh, really?
I literally just Googled hacker, and I just know that one scene from Mission Impossible, so
Yeah.
I just Googled that.
The famous scene. So I'm immediately like, cool, thematically, I'm in asymmetric limited communication co-op with Sky Team out. That is hot right now. A lot of publishers are going to want exactly that. So thematically, thematic hook, you've got me. Like, I'm on board. I like your layout, by the way, the diagonal and how the hacker diagonal lines up with the board diagonal. That's really cute.
Thank you.
Methodical stealth.
I did work really hard on making that line up, actually.
That's great. Methodical stealth gameplay, sneak your way to the objective and get it. I mean, I've played this, so it's a little bit disingenuous to be reading it, but 12 plus, 2 players.
It has changed. It has changed.
Oh, okay. Yep. No, I think this is great. I don't think I have any notes. I'm trying to think if there's anything I would cut almost, because I think this is so clean and really excellent.
Nice.
Provide intel, distract guards, deliver gear, disable alarms. I would maybe consider restructuring that to match the original, so match the spy. So the spy says sneak your way out to the objective and get out safely without alerting guards. That's a little wordy. I think you could trim out some words from that if you really wanted to. But then I would say the hacker, provide intel and distract the guards from afar. Something that tells you what. And again, I've played this, and for me, the really interesting thing is this idea of one person in the field and one person just nowhere near the field, but overseeing, Simon Pegg or Ving James does in those films. But yeah, I think this one's really solid. Let's go on to the next one.
Sure. I'm going to show you one that I know needs a lot of work.
Cool.
This is very much not the way I normally do it.
Oh, it's
much,
a lot of
much
text.
text heavier than I normally go.
Cyberpunk Extraction, an intense, high-stakes roguelike. Have I told you this? I am obsessed with roguelikes at the moment. I am heavy into roguelikes. I've played in the last week probably 12, 13 hours of roguelikes, which for me is very unusual. I don't play video games at all.
12 or 13 hours is like a few runs in some roguelikes.
It's I've been
I
heavy
think
into
I've got
roguelikes.
like 300 hours in Slay the Spiral.
That's next on my list. Actually, I'm working through Balatro at the moment, but I'm going to move on
Have
to
you done
Slay
Into
the
the
Spire.
Breach? That's a must play.
That's the sequel to FTL. Am I correct?
It's not a sequel to it. It's
The
from
spiritual,
same
the follow-up.
No, it plays entirely differently.
By the same team,
different.
though, right?
Same team.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Follow up, like it's the next
sure.
project from them. I played FTL, Slay the Spires on my list, and then Into the Breach would definitely be.
It's
interesting.
a must play. It's the best tactics game that's ever existed. It's
I like
amazing.
them light. Like I want as little as possible, and I remember playing a few rounds of that. It was just a little bit too much for me, but I'll revisit it because I enjoyed it. An intense high stakes roguelike. Oh man, roguelike. I'm interested. Co-op tactical extraction board game. Okay, so firstly, you got too many words there. It just became word salad by the end. Like I cannot process how many adjectives you've used there. So, for example, you probably don't need the word bored.
Right.
Um,
And I could probably cut high stakes or intense.
Yeah, high stakes and intense are sort of doing the same thing. I would probably cut high. Oh, you're literally editing it as we talk. I would probably cut high stakes because for me, I'm like, how am I going to die if I play this poorly? You can get rid of the comma too.
Yep.
An intense roguelike co-op tactical extraction game. I don't know what tactical extraction is, so that's adding nothing to me, and that's definitely contributing to the word salad. Sorry, can you go back to whatever mode you had before? I can't see it as clearly now.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is that helping?
Carefully choose your loadout for the scenario. That sounds like work to me. I understand that's a fun strategic decision, but as the first thing I have to do, I'm like, I just give me a game. I don't want to sit there and carefully do anything. I want to understand what's fun. You've said do a lot of work to play this game, and my first thought is no. I'll play a game that doesn't first tell me I need to do work. I think that could be fun and interesting. I would not have that as the first thing. You're powerful but die easily. Position yourself carefully to avoid attacks. Love it. I immediately have a really good sense of what this game is, especially having played a bunch of roguelikes. I'm like, cool. I get this. Extract with VIPs to unlock characters. Literally no idea what that means.
VIP means a very important person.
Extract with very important people to unlock characters. Extract what? Extract the VIPs? Extract diamonds? Extract love?
So this is where you mentioned before you have no idea what tactical extraction means. Extraction is a video game genre. As far as I know, this is the first extraction board game that's existed. And the idea of those is you have a mission, you go in, you complete some number of objectives, but you have control over when the experience ends, and you have to get out. And if you get out,
Like
what
Clank.
you get out with. Sorry?
Clank.
Sure, in the same thing, but it's got meta progression. Imagine a campaign or something.
No, I understand what a roguelike is. I'm saying
Sure.
Clank is an extraction game by the definition you just gave.
Sure, but you don't have meta progression. The game is over then. This one, it's if you whatever character you want to play next time, you have to extract with a new character to be able to play with that new character. You extract with more gear, you can pick that for the next scenario. Those sorts of things.
But just grammatically, what does extract with VIPs mean? Break down those three words.
So that means when you leave the scenario safely without dying, with a character that you have safely
This is purely a grammatical thing. You're saying exit with VIPs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Extract grammatically doesn't mean that. I understand it does in this context, but outside of that, it's like saying replace the word extract with remove, and you'll understand my confusion.
Right.
You're saying leave with VIPs
yeah.
or extract VIPs, and this is probably correct in the roguelike community. I'm not saying you're doing it wrong. I'm saying as someone who doesn't know what that is, it looks like a typo. It reads like a typo. Okay, so and I think generally speaking, your sell sheet should not be targeting people who are already aware of this genre. Like I said, I'm really into roguelikes. I am a professional game designer. I know a lot about games. Never heard of it. Grammatically using a thing this is not selling me. This is saying, hey, you already like this thing? And I'm like, I don't, so I'm just going to bounce off it straight away.
Mm-hmm.
So I would sell the genre a little bit there rather than assume genre knowledge. I would say extract VIPs to use them in your next game.
Mm-hmm.
Or however it works. Defeat bosses to earn super weapons, love it. I'm not going to read all the fast turn stuff. I think there's just way too much there. So to what we talked about in the episode before this, or in the sell sheet episode, like, or even what I was saying on your first one. Right now, I feel like you're trying to sell me on 20 different things at once, and I think a pitch sheet. So I'll use the two that I did in our sell sheet episode as an example. Like, one of them was like, "Hey, this game is fun to play. Play this game right now, and you will see that it is fun." That is a straight line between, product and pitch. Right. The second one is fun to play, obviously, but you can't play it on sell sheet. So I said, "Hey, this game is thematically really cool and will look good on the table. That's why people will buy it." Straight line from that idea to the sell sheet. The vending machine game said, "Hey, this game has a cool thing and a different cool thing, and it's this and it's that, and there's no straight line." Is this metaphor making sense?
Yep. And like right here, this is saying like fast turns and then explain every little thing you do on those turns. Yeah. And instead of being like, listen, that's actually quite simple, it's making it seem very complex.
Exactly. Yeah. The Mighty and the Sword, one of the things I am by far proudest of is how ridiculously smooth that game is. Every turn has 3 steps. One is move to an adjacent space. One is do one of 2 things. The other one is take an action. And there's like a list of 3 actions, and that's it. And from that, it's the most complex, like interesting, dynamic decisions, but it's so smooth. So we don't try to explain that on the sell sheet. I think I did at one point, and my co-designer was like, "Hey, maybe let's not make it seem more complicated than it is." I would work out with Nicholas, your co-designer, what is the thing that you are selling? Because I think from the outside, tactical extraction games, we've turned that into a board game experience. That's a great pitch. I don't know them, so it doesn't work on me. But I imagine there's a lot of publishers who are like, because publishers aren't playing board games in the downtime as much as they're probably playing video games because it's not work. So if you can say like, "Hey, we've managed to capture this, great," that's the pitch. So the first sentence of this for me would be, captures the popular roguelike genre tactical extraction in board game form, and then just sell the genre. Like, don't sell your game, sell the genre. And if they're like, "Oh man, that sounds really cool," great, then they'll play the game. And if they don't, great, they know that it's not for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a pretty substantial redesign. I'm saying everything past the bottom, like past the top half, I would get rid of.
I agree. I would like you to just assess this section right here, though, this like example of game and play, just to see if I got it across what I was trying to get across.
The red enemies in cover making attacks less effective. I don't care. That's so bitsy. That's such a like. Imagine a sell sheet that said, "Your enemy has a yellow card in hand, so they've got a 4% greater chance of." I'm like, why are you explaining the minutiae of this game before I could like? I don't have the context for it. Your blue hero moves away from its line of sight, prompting it to leave cover and preventing it from attacking. Yeah, this is just noise. Gotcha. It's just so many details that it's sort of what we talked about at the start, where a lot of designers will try to explain how to play their game on the sell sheet. How to play your game, with rare exception, is not the pitch.
Right.
If you can get people playing the game in the pitch, amazing. You've got the world's simplest game. My game is Birds, Bees, and Butterflies. I don't know if you ever played that one. That one, the pitch is, play this game with me. Movie night, the pitch is, play this game with me, because it requires no explanation. You can immediately start playing. This game, the red enemy, okay, are there multiple... Is this a... I don't even know if this is a multiplayer... It's a solo game, I guess. The red enemy, are there different colors of enemy? Does red make him more powerful? Is this purely aesthetic? Is in cover, that's a mechanic that is different in every single game. Making his attacks less effective. So cover makes his attacks less... Like, I just don't have the context for any of it. I want it to die. As warned, I'm going to be harsh.
No, this is what we're here for.
Instead, think back of the box. Sorry, go back to that for 1 second.
Sure.
I started talking the second you clicked away from it. You would not see zoomed in moments from the game on the back of a box. You would see...
That is not true.
Can you give me an example?
Well, even like...
Exclusively. You would not exclusively see zoomed in
yeah.
moments. I don't want to see the zoomed in moment and not the context. I want to see, what does this game look like on the table. The Mission Impossible one did an amazing job of that. It's got the shield, it's got the board, it's got the second board. I can look at that, and I've played it obviously, but I can look at that and be like, that's the same map twice. Oh, that person, like, it tells me a story. Mm-hmm. This one is the equivalent of the back of a book saying, Jeremy picked up the coin. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
What does any of that mean? So I'm not saying they never did. I'm saying they don't exclusively do it, which this currently does.
Yep. Appreciate it. Okay.
I've played this game many times. Okay, Scallywags, the push your luck game where you set the traps. Love it. I love that bit. I like this game, so I'm biased, but that sentence immediately tells me like it helps a lot that this game is for me. Setting traps in games is, I think you and I share this, one of my favorite things in board games. My fourth game Ninjutsu, my fifth game Ninjutsu is entirely trap setting. That's the game. That's the central mechanic. That's everything. So I love that push your luck game where you set the traps. Amazing. Hide traps and lay treasures. They try to avoid or destroy pirates. Don't need both of those. Just say avoid pirates. It might not technically be right, but it's not adding anything to be. Again, it's overly specific.
Gotcha.
They try to avoid pirates. Tells me everything I need to know, and then during the game, no publisher's going to be like, whoa, I was sold on only avoid and not destroy. It's just not going to happen. And if they bust, you get the treasure. Amazing. Tells me so much. I love this. I don't even know if pirates adds anything there. They try to avoid the traps is too repetitive, but like... Anyway, I don't know how to fix that. And if you bust, get the treasure, and then components. Hey, designed by AJ Brandon, co-host of the design podcast Fun Problems. I would absolutely lose that. I don't think that is a thing publishers care about. And I realize I'm also the co-host of this podcast, but I just don't. There's a thing in when you're pitching a book to an agent. They're called literary agents. It's submitting. You submit a book, and the general rule is if you've won a national award, absolutely include it. If you've won a local award, calm down. Like,
gotcha.
That's what this feels like. And I realize we're literally on this podcast as I say that. I know our listenership numbers, and they're not impressive enough to put there. Yeah. The thing that I think this is missing, actually, so you warned me of this ahead of time, is that like you go very, very minimalist, which I think is great for the most part. The thing I think is missing is just an example of what a clever trap is.
It doesn't fall into the thing that you said I should be doing on the last one?
Yes. So this game is so simple that I know the structure intimately. Like from this cell sheet, I could almost teach this game. Hey, on your turn, you're going to lay some traps and the opponent's going to go through, try to avoid them. And if they fail, you'll get the treasure. If they succeed, you get the treasure. Like, again, I've played it, so this is not a completely cold take, but that's a pretty fair summary of the game, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, go back to the other one, and I'll try to do the same thing with that. Okay, in this game, you are going to choose a loadout, try to extract VIP. Like I don't know what a turn looks like. And that's not, I'm not saying I should know what a turn looks like. I'm saying from Scallywags, I can tell you what a full round looks like, and I can infer what a turn looks like. It's sort of like you were saying with the Mighty Than the Sword cell sheet, where you're like, you haven't told me explicitly stuff, but you've given me enough information that I can build my own image of it. I think Scallywags does that, and this one doesn't. So now that I've got that in Scallywags, I just want like one example. Sorry, I'm getting you to jump back and forth. Can I go back to Scallywags, please?
Yep, no problem.
So like I see all these symbols, but they're just icons that don't mean anything to me. I almost wouldn't mind like pointing to one. I don't think this is quite right, but like pointing to one of them being like, this one flips their hand upside down or whatever. Like I don't remember the mechanics well enough to say what they do. But I do remember there being like interesting traps, and I think that is a selling point.
Gotcha.
So even hide treasure and choose which traps to lay, is that an accurate thing that you can do in this game or not?
You don't choose which ones to lay. No, you just choose where things go.
Gotcha. Okay, maybe it's fine then. Your spacing is terrible on your middle speech bubble as a result of the changes, but
yeah, that's something to fix for later.
Yes. Okay, cool. So the only thing is like I wouldn't mind just like a skerrick more information, but I don't think it needs it. I think this is very clean, and I like this game a lot, and it's very much for me. The pirate theme's a little nothing. It's not as bad as vending machines, but it's a little like It would be cute if you just had like a spin on it. I had a consultancy once where the guy was showing me a game and it was a cowboy themed game, and I was like, just make all the cowboys birds, you know, like make it a cowboy town where they're all animals, or it's set in the future, or it's in space. Like cowboys is a non-theme now. Pirates is a non-theme. Whereas if it was like scallywags, your children stuck on an island, like cool, we're kids. Okay, it just gives me something that's not the most generic theme. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Cosplay girls.
Great thematic hook immediately.
Thank you.
I don't like that these speech bubbles have different size text in them. That is unpleasant to the eyes. Choose a line to get in. The store charges $1 per girl in line. Choose a line to get in. The store charges $1 per girl in line. So I mentioned from the title, immediately great thematic hook. You've thematically lost me. Like, what store charges based on how many people are in line? I've never encountered that. I think you're trying to emulate supply and demand. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right. The description is so literal that I'm in theme mode, right? You said cosplay girls get great deals, dress in cute outfits. This is all purely thematic. The next thing I've read is the store charges $1 per girl in line. I'm still in theme mode. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like, stores don't do that. The more in line, the more demand. Great. Now, I don't care what mechanism you're doing to simulate that, but if I'm in theme mode, don't give me... I playtested a game that I can't talk about for NDA reasons, but I started playing and I was immediately like, friend, this doesn't thematically make sense. And he was like, yeah, but it's a game. I'm like, no. Like, I bounce so hard off games. I can't even describe it without giving away what it was. But essentially, like, the mechanism just didn't match how real life works at all. It's like when I'm playing a game, I'm often like, but who am I? Like, what? Who am I playing in this game? I need to know. Okay, choose a line to get in. The more in line, the more expensive. That's an awful sentence, but I appreciate what you've done. If they don't want it, you get it cheaper. Who's they? The store? The line? So they is a pronoun that refers to a previously referenced entity. Someone lost their wallet. Someone is the they. Right now I have choose a line to get in, the more in line, the most expensive. The only noun I have is line. So that's what they grammatically refers to. You can tell I'm a nightmare to work with and also a writer. And I feel like you're saying the same thing twice, which is this game has a supply and demand mechanism. That's what both of those speech bubbles say. I don't need it twice. I barely need it once. If I'm gonna pause reading the rest of it just to say, like, the second I see cosplay girls get great deals and dress in cute outfits, I'm thinking pattern matching. Like, I want to get these things all, like, I want to get these different parts of a costume. I'm thinking fun, like, media ties in. I'm thinking balloons. I'm supply and demand can definitely lean into all those, but I'm more interested in, like, what makes me feel like I'm a cosplayer. What motivates cosplayers? That's what I want this game to be doing. Cosplayers want admiration. I think that's a reasonable thing to say. They want people to be like, man, did you see that girl's costume? Amazing. They want attention, admiration. They want quality. Like, they take pride in what they do. I guess they want deals, but I don't think that deals is the primary motivator for a cosplay girl. Is this helpful? Or am I just...
Well, I know you said you were going to stop reading, but the last point was dress and keep matching outfits for points. But yeah.
Right, but so, like, that's the last thing on the page.
Right.
I hear cosplay girls. So firstly, as discussed, this is a thematic hook. So you've set up the promise of this is a thematic pitch. Then you're giving me in the before editing a mechanic that doesn't make sense. So you're immediately saying this is a thematic pitch, but I'm not going to be thematic. Gross. Good change. But then you're not delivering on the, hey, I understand this theme. It's like, I think we talked about this in another episode, but, like, if you are making a game about being a coal miner, it's going to feel harrowing. It should feel this. It should feel that. If you're making a game about being a pretty princess riding a unicorn, it should be light. It should be like fairly whimsical. It should be random. It shouldn't be a 7-hour Twilight Imperium game. And similarly, a coal mining game shouldn't be like flip a coin. And I mean, that would make sense for different reasons. But you know what I mean? Like, so if as a publisher, if you're selling me the product Cosplay Girls, the thematic game, I want to know that you, AJ, get this theme and are going to deliver on this theme. Like immediately I see 30 minutes and I'm like, that's a little long for a game called Cosplay Girls. I would want to see that at 20 minutes. I don't know how the game plays. Maybe it's amazing for 30 minutes, but from the title and the image on the side alone, 30 minutes feels long. 14 plus feels way too high. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Where are you doing?
And those cards seem very, very, very text heavy. I realize they're not. But again, to deliver on, like, Cosplay Girls is a game that you should be selling at every convention, not just board game conventions, and it should be one that, like, BronyCon had for sale, and people could pick it up and play it right there on the floor. That's what the Cosplay Girls game should be. So if you want to pitch this to me, I want to see you immediately delivering on that promise. Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
How you feeling? I'm just checking in emotionally.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cool.
So for the listeners' sake, I have absolutely zero attachment to anything that I do. There was a book that you recommended to me that I read, and it was I forget which one it was. I forget exactly which one it was because I read so many things that you recommended, but it was about or the comment that was relevant was that you should try and detach yourself from both your successes and your failures. That if you have emotional stake in the things that you make, then it's gonna if you do something that people perceive as bad or you get negative criticism on, it's gonna hurt your feelings or whatever.
Right.
But then if you put too much emotional stake in the things that you get, then it becomes external and you sort of need that as well. And that's something where I have many flaws, but one thing that I've always had is I've sort of had that philosophy where it's like it literally just doesn't bother me. Like you cannot hurt my feelings with anything you say. I take all this in stride. This is all great feedback that I can then use. This is all like for listeners. Peter's doing me a huge favor by doing this, and you a huge favor by proxy by seeing all the
his raw and sometimes harsh thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
My first thought on this is that you're really ugly and I don't like your wife.
My cards are very ugly.
That's true, actually, but your wife more so. I'm trying to test this can't hurt your feelings thing. No, I'm joking. Your wife's very lovely. You know that. You married her. Overpowered. The game where your cards are so ridiculously overpowered, you only need 3. Great premise, great pitch, great mechanical hook, great experiential hook, I guess, is really what you're doing there, but we'll say mechanical hook for the sake of rigid adherence to categories. I don't love that sentence. I'm trying to work out why I feel that way. The game where your cards are so ridiculously overpowered, you only need 3. I think it's really good, and yet it's bumping me, and I don't know why. So that's an unhelpful note. Again, I'm before I even look at the rules, I'm going to glance over at the stats and say that this immediately doesn't match my expectation. In the same way as I saw Cosplay Girl 30 minutes, I was like, that seems high. I see overpowered and 2, and I think really I would have 100% assumed this went up to like 5 players. It feels like the kind of game. Just from that title and single sentence pitch, I literally haven't read anything below this. It feels like is it Spike or whoever it is, the like Magic the Gathering player who wants to like dominate.
Yep.
And I think that is encouraged in like a multiplayer format. I think that
I strongly disagree.
Really?
I think Spike massively leans towards 2-player games. I think 2-player games are inherently more competitive because of the type of competition. Like if you have a 3-player game, then some amount of the competition becomes political. And obviously political is a skill, and like you can use that. But I think that most spikes view that as I'm in a battle with this person, and then this person comes over and messes with it. That feels unfair, or like I lost not because I did something, but because this person made a poor strategic choice to attack me instead of them. Those sorts of things. That's how I think of it anyway.
Gotcha. I think, again, I haven't read past, so maybe this is pre-solved. If I only have 3 cards, I feel like there's going to be an element of randomness to it. And if I get dealt a better hand than you, it's not going to scratch the itch in the same way as it will if there's 5 of us and I still manage to win.
So I'm not going to bother defending the game. I don't think that's an issue, but that's outside the scope of what we're talking about anyway. This is how Peter feels from reading this, which is the important thing.
I've worked out what I don't like about the sentence. The game is called Overpowered, and you say Overpowered in the description. I want the game to be called like Unstoppable, and then the thing in there, or like I just don't like that repetition of word. This is something I'm hypersensitive to, so don't necessarily change the space of this feedback, but like. Even in the Scallywags example, when I was like, well, you can't have traps on 2 different things. You can, I just don't. It bugs me. Ridiculously Overpowered is something I already knew from the title, so it feels a bit redundant. Okay, so yeah, my gut is that this should play with more than 2, but let's read on. Choose 3 multi-use cards that synergize, battle in lightning-fast rounds. I play the spell, which lets me play my other cards for free. I destroy both your creatures. You have nothing left, so I'll win with my last card. Firstly, destroy shouldn't be capitalized there. Secondly, I'll win with my last card is such a, like... I don't know if that's a rule or, like, my last card lets me win or if it's most cards remaining. Like, it feels too specific and too broad at the same time. Whereas I think, like, you have nothing left tells me... Sorry?
Sorry, finish that.
You have nothing left tells me that I'm in a position of strength. I don't think you need to specify, so I'll win with my last card. Metagame for the next round. This card will make their removal spells useless. Love that. I think that's really cool. Like, a persistent thing between rounds is really interesting.
Cool. Thanks.
I just want to explore the thought. Yeah, I think this brings to mind games like Unstable Unicorns, Exploding Kittens, like stuff like that. Because the pitch is so extreme, and that might sound like an insult if you're a lot of designers. I think those games are amazing and brilliant, and like deserve to have sold as many copies as they have. What they're doing is not necessarily what most hobby gamers want, but they're doing something that's really cool and interesting. And I've played hours and hours of those games with my son and had a great time the whole time. So I think this pitch feels like it's playing into that space from the title and the tagline. And then when I see 2, I'm like, oh, I've gotten something wrong, which is fine, and you can do that, you can get away with that. But for me, I'm like, there is a disconnect there, and I think that's part of what it is. Like, I want a game called Overpowered to fit next to my shelf with Smash Up.
Right.
You know what I mean? They both have that kind of broad, title explains the mechanism, let's go, this feels like it should be accessible, this feels like it should play a lot of players, this feels like something you should be able to grab off the shelf and have a great time with gamers and non-gamers. And the second I see 2-player, I'm like, oh, that's not what it is? Okay. Interesting.
Gotcha.
Cool.
All right, we'll just do one more, I think.
Cool.
See how that goes.
The Draft, a drafting skirmish game. So same note as earlier, I just don't like it when the same things in the title and in the tagline. When we were working on the Mighty of the Sword cell sheet, which we did so many iterations of, every time we were like, okay, does the image show this? The text doesn't need to. Does this show this? Then this part doesn't need to. It's sort of like an elegance thing. If your title is called The Draft, I guess it doesn't imply drafting necessarily because the draft is a phrase, but to immediately say like, it's a drafting game, it's like, yeah, okay, cool. I feel like you're talking down to me.
Sure.
Draft a variety of exciting cards. Spy, terrain, unit, combat, upgrade, resource. None of those words are exciting. You made a promise and then didn't deliver on it. Draft a variety of exciting cards. Resource. I'm like, that, okay. If the cards are exciting, show me an exciting card, but don't give me the word resource and expect me to be excited because you told me it's exciting. Outposition your enemy. Changing objective keeps you on your toes. Love that. 2 or 4 players. That's a slight red flag, but I understand that games need to do that sometimes. Changing objective keep you on your toes. So outposition your enemies. When I glanced over to be like, oh, your enemy singular. I'm just following my thought process as I look at the sheet. This is also a weird shape for a cell sheet. It's not letter size or A4. It's like square.
That was purely an accident, and then I just didn't change it. Good eye, by the way, that you just did. That you realized it wasn't like an 8.5 by 11 on the landscape.
Changing objectives keep you on your toes. Long-range units support battles. This is the same thing I've said a few times, so I'm going to say it again, which is just like, you've gone way minutia. Like, this is really specific. Like, long-range units support battles is a bunch of keywords that I don't need until I don't know what a turn looks like, you know? Food and fuel are required to move units, so position carefully. Cool. That's not exciting. Like, that's not a pitch. That's a fact about the game. That's a rule. No one is ever like, you know what I really want to sign and play is a game where food and fuel are required to move units. Like, right. That's work, if you know the term. Yeah, so this one suffers from, I just don't know what the pitch is. What's your hook? And in fact, if this is the last one we're doing, let's use this as a case study. As the designer of this game, I assume, yes, it'd be weird if you weren't. What is the hook, or what are the hooks?
So I will tell you, this is the weakest hook of any of my games that I'm pitching for one very important reason. I did not design this game to pitch it. I designed this game for me. Yep. And then obviously I would like to sign it, but that's why. And the hook is simply that it is a very high skill ceiling drafting game with very robust drafting mechanics. So again, very, very weak hook. But
No, but I just need that as a starting point.
Yes.
You have not listed what the high skill drafting mechanic is. I have literally no idea. I know that it's drafting. That could be that could be pick and pass, that could be drafting from a central thing, that could be a vending machine draft. Like, I have no information. And if that's, as self-stated, your hook, that's got to be front and center.
Right.
Because right now, thematically, it feels like generic combat. Mechanically, all I have is minutia, and component-wise, it's got hexes with circles on them, which is nothing. So this one needs work for sure.
Yep.
Especially when you say 75 minutes on the side, I only just noticed that now. Like, that is a long, heavy game. You got to have something really compelling at the core of that for me to be like interested in a big game like that. And then the other thing is, I 1,000% assumed this was a game about the idea of the government can call you up to serve in the army. I thought that was the pun you were going for, and then when that didn't appear, expectation was not met.
Gotcha.
Cool. Well, AJ, I hope that was helpful. You've said it was, but I'm always nervous when I give feedback and it's completely honest. And listeners, viewers, please let us know either in the comments below or in the Discord if this was useful, because this is something that I would absolutely be open to doing again, and potentially even with some viewer submitted ones. I think that would be a really interesting way of doing things.
Then I can be mean, because I don't feel bad about being mean.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on this? Any lessons learned? Any takeaways?
Let's just take a quick minute and go through some of the main takeaways here. So
yes,
this is something that wasn't a main issue in most of my sell sheets, but it was in at least one of them, which is text light. However light you think the text is on your thing, it needs to be lighter. Like, if you were watching this and every time Peter said, oh, there's too much text here, and you're like, what? AJ only has like 3 speech bubbles. He's serious. Like, that is what you should be aiming for. And when Peter was I think one of the biggest things was unnecessary minutia. And
yes, I was going to say that was one of my 2 big takeaways. Is just like, this is not a rule sheet.
Yes.
And this is why I needed to talk about what is a sell sheet. The primary purpose of a sell sheet is to sell, and only explain if it supports the selling. That's the only, like, it's sort of like we talk about every rule having a cost. On a sell sheet, every rule has $1 million cost. If you have a rule or a keyword or a bit of minutia, it has to be there because they won't sign the game without it.
I think that's a really good guiding light there. Is this directly going to get your game signed? If not,
or to the play stage, etc. Like,
yes,
yeah. Carry on. What other takeaways did you get? I've got one more, but I want to see if you hit it. You did a really good job of the fundamentals. It had all of the information that I needed. Actually, this wasn't mine, but I'll mention it.
Sure.
Work out what you are promising and then deliver on that promise.
Right.
Cosplay Girls was the clearest example of that, where that and this is true as a designer outside of the cell sheet, and we've talked about this in that context, but in a cell sheet especially, it ties into like work out what your hooks are and sell those hooks. But like if you are selling a thematic experience, the point of this is to say, I understand this thematic experience I'm going to deliver. If you're promising a component, the point of this is to say, like, this component makes the game work. You know what I mean? Like, this component is sexy. Go ahead.
One thing you didn't say directly, but this was implied by a lot of things that you said, is that I have the curse of knowledge, which, if listeners aren't familiar, is you already know your game inside and out. The publisher doesn't. So it's very, very easy to say something and think that you're being clear in saying how something works or what it does, and have the publisher not really understand what it is because they don't have the context that you do.
Yeah. One thing we didn't talk about at all was quality of graphic design and then illustrations by default. And this is somewhat of a controversial opinion in the thing, but I use a lot of like Midjourney and AI when I'm making my prototypes because I want to create that full product vision. You don't need to do that, but if you're not going to do that, I strongly recommend just going on Google image search and just finding some stuff that gives the tone of what you're trying to do. The previous game we looked at, Overpowered, had no graphics whatsoever, and I think that hurts it a little bit. Again, like for me, that's such, I'm going to use the word wet. That's such a wet title and tagline that then to glance down and see such a dry game by comparison is off-putting. Like, I'm not saying this is going to be Unstable Unicorns or whatever, but I just want something that gives me an idea of the tone, which right now this doesn't, except for text.
Yeah, this one I struggle with a lot because I completely agree. I think like art sells and all those sorts of things, and it just, like you said, it feels very dry. The cards do, especially in comparison to the rest of it. And I think that what I should have done in retrospect, and what maybe I could do to update the sell sheet, is make the cards larger size so that they can fit around. Because right now, it has too much text to fit any art on it. It's just not possible, even though some of them are pretty text light. But if you went with like Dixit size cards, you could still have the text and still have room for art and those sorts of things.
Sorry, I'm going to dive back into Overpowered because I didn't notice this before. I've just realized these speech bubbles are saying exactly what these cards do. And so, A, the cards are repeated, it looks like 3 times on this cell sheet, which is a lot of real estate. Mm-hmm. B, I played the spell, which lets me play my other cards for free. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know, hey, this card does, like, you could cut those 6 cards from the side, and I wouldn't notice or care. Right. In fact, what I would probably do is cut those, make the speech bubbles bigger, and then call the first one 1, and put a 1 on the card that you're activating, and then call the second one 2, and put a 2 on the card that you're activating. Having it there 3 times is such a redundancy of information that I think it really hurts you, especially because, as you're aware, the cards are pretty ugly. Mm-hmm. Okay, any other big takeaways? Like I said, I've got one more.
I think being cognizant of the hook and making sure that you are articulating the hook and the promise of the game very clearly is very important.
That was my third one, yeah. Know what your hook is, and that's all your sell sheet should be. So, like, with Mighty and Sword, we had 2 hooks, and we leaned into them as hard as we possibly could. With Scalawag, like, you knew what the hook was. It's that mechanical hook, and that's all the sheet does, and that was, I think, your most effective one because of that. So, if you haven't yet, go back and listen to our hooks episode, or the whole run of the podcast where we talk about hooks a lot, but especially the hooks episode, and then directly one-to-one apply that to your sell sheet would be my advice.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter.
Cool. Thank you so much. This is really fun. Yeah, so, and let us know in the comments if you want to see more of this, or if you want us to get back to talking about game design theory.
which will, regardless, be the vast majority of what we do on the podcast.
Yes. AJ, you want to have some fun?
I'd love to.
I'm going to try and tie this in thematically. What is the hardest you ever remember, like, wanting to buy something? Like, when did a sales pitch really work on you?
That's a really good, fun question.
I'm just really fun. I don't know if you know this about me. But only for a very short amount of time at the end of a podcast. That's the only time I allow it.
Do you have one?
The one that I always think of, and I think I might have actually used this as a previous answer, is Spore. The game. I wanted that game so bad, and it was also such a disappointment. But like, when I was a kid, I remember watching ads and just like itching to have that thing. Like, kids advertising is very effective, shockingly. But like, as more of a grown up, and I was only in my 20s at the time, so not a proper grown up. Heyo, the Spore. I devoured all the preview content, like Robin Williams playing it on stage, all the interviews, everything. I wanted that game so bad. That and Age of Empires 2, I just really, really wanted it.
It's
a Tesla. I want a Tesla so bad.
You know what? I know my answer.
Yep.
It's a Vitamix.
What's a Vitamix?
It's a really good blender. It's the best blender. And I do a lot of like smoothies and those sorts of things. Clearly, usually I make them, but milkshakes and those sorts of things, or even just like soups and stuff. And I am very sensitive to like really big chunks and stuff. If you have a bad blender, like
Yeah.
And I even like tried to buy like a middle of the range sort of one, and I was like, it's just not doing it. And every time I used it, I was like, I wish this was a Vitamix. And eventually I saw like a half decent sale, and I could not have clicked buy fast enough.
Yeah. I got a Meta Quest 2. They're called something. They keep changing the name of it. It's so annoying. The Oculus became the Meta Quest, became the Meta Horizon. So I had a 2, and it was really good. I use it all the time. I use it for Beat Saber and workouts, and like playing games with my son who lives in Toronto. And then when Critter Kitchen hit $1 million, I was like, I'm buying a Meta Quest 3. This is what I'm doing to celebrate hitting $1 million on a Kickstarter. No regrets. I use it all the time, and I love it so much more than the 2, which I already loved a lot.
Actually, that's great. I'll actually change my answer to the PSVR 2, which I was so unbelievably hyped for, because like at the time, it was the best headset on the market. It has OLED, HDR, like all the nice fancy quality of life features. And I'm a really big fan of the physical feedback features of modern PlayStation products, where like the controllers have really high level of like granularity for vibrations and stuff like that. I even in this headset, if there's an explosion, my headset vibrates. It's awesome. And I was a huge fan of VR when when the Vive first came out. That was like a really big step forward for VR, I think. And as soon as I played that, I was like desperate for VR. But I was waiting because I didn't want to just like buy a headset as the technology was advancing. So the PSVR 2 was like a really nice breakpoint where it was like we've hit a new solid threshold that's going to be like best in class at least for a bit. So I was like, yes, love it.
Amazing. It's funny that so many of our answers were video game based.
Yeah, I mean, people who are listening might be surprised by this, but I like video games more than board games. I play a lot more video games than board games.
Not me.
I just can't design them.
Yeah, I've been really stressed lately, so I've been escaping into video games a little bit more than usual. But for me, like the video games I like the most are the ones that feel like board games, in that I can see the whole state and like. So we were talking about roguelikes earlier. I played through Hoplite. I don't know if you ever played. You would not like it, but like it's exactly for me. It's super simple. I'm actually going to probably design a few games kind of inspired by it in the near future. It's just super simple. Like it's a hex-based grid. You move one space and then everyone reacts accordingly. And so it's completely like... Oh, we can probably stop sharing screen now think about it. It's completely... You can see all the bits. That's what I want from a video game. Like Balatro is a poker roguelike where the randomness is a shuffled deck of cards. I can wrap my head around that. What I don't want is something like Borderlands where the gun has an accuracy rating and a refresh rating and a blah blah blah, and it's all like all the behind the scenes stuff is what turns me off about video games. I want everything that it could be a board game theoretically. That's what I want. That's where I live.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's different to most people, but that's why I say like I like board games more, and the video games I like are capturing that board game experience.
Right. For me, board games serve an entirely different function to video games. For me, I play video games Yes, exactly. I play video games because I want to play the game, and I play board games because I want to hang it with my friends and do something while I'm hanging out with my friends.
Why do you make board games?
I make board games because I think I actually have more fun designing board games than I do playing board games.
Wow.
Like, significantly more, actually. If I had to choose, like, never play a board game again in my life or never design again, it would be the never play it again.
That should be a future fun question. For now, we're going to wrap up because otherwise we'll just sit here and chat all day. Thanks so much for watching, and hope you got something out of it, and that you didn't walk away being like, man, that Peter, he sure is a bully. He has strong opinions.
Reminder to everyone, Peter just did me and you guys a big favor. He's not being mean. It's just like any feedback for any game. If something's not working, someone points it out, don't be upset. Don't take it personally. Thank them. They just did you a favor. Thank you, Peter.
If I could, I would give, like, this is why I like working with professional designers, because I can give feedback like that. When I'm working with anyone else, I have to, like, couch it and balance it and blah, 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 and not make people cry. But, like, not to be mean, just because I just want to get to the things that could be better. Okay, we'll talk to you all later. Thanks for watching. Bye!
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter at FunProblemsPod, or reach us via email at funproblemspodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and if you enjoyed the podcast, please tell a friend.